let's get into the matters arising and welcome my guests in studio. James Kwabena Bonfe Jr., a CEO of Census and also a lecturer at UPSA. He's here in the studio. We also have Dr. Victor Doke. He's lecturer at Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. He is joining us via Zoom. We're expecting to be joined by Vicky Bright, former legal advisor to former President Kufuor, a lawyer and an entrepreneur. Lom Nuku Alija is lawyer, lecturer, and energy expert. And Daniel Ni Kwate Titus Glover is former Greater Accra Regional Minister and MPP's national organizer aspirant. Okay, so there you have it. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Kujo.
Okay. Let's start with what's happening in Mali, because we heard yesterday that the militants waged a war on a community which is close to the capital, and that resulted in the killing of the defense minister. We told that there was a bombing close to his house. He and two other members of his household died in the process. What does that mean for the peace of the regional, the sub-region? Let me start with Dr. Victor Doke, because that's his area. Doc, I'm grateful to you for joining us.
Thank you.
What does this portend for Mali itself and the security and peace of the sub-region in general?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did you hear my question?
Yes. Good morning to you and then the co-panelists in the studio. So with regards to what this means for Mali themselves and then the peace and security in the sub-region, specifically the Sahel, it means the uncertainty still remains as to whether we are going to see some improvement in security-related issues when it comes to the Sahel, Mali, Niger, and the rest. Now, what happened yesterday is sending a strong signal, or means that hitherto years back, when we know armed groups who were not organized, didn't have a well-structured operational system, is not the narrative anymore. Now, armed groups have become very much structured, very well organized, have a financing mechanism with regards to their operations and activities, and have sponsors. One other thing too we have to notice, the fact that they are no more willing to act individually, but would be willing to coordinate or cooperate with other affiliates or other armed elements to achieve a certain goal, so that in the end they can split whatever that they have acquired or whatever. That is what is going to happen. Now, this issue or incident that has happened in Mali with regards to the killing of the defense minister, and then they would topple down areas where the military were, positioned to, repel them. They will fall. What is going to happen is we may have in the long term a split Mali, north and south, and that is going to be dangerous for the Sahel region. Talking about we in the coast also. Now, regional bodies need to come in ASAP. And when I say ASAP, even before ASAP, because then the situation will get dire. We are looking at the, insecurity that's going to build up, and then the momentum in which it's going to build up, nobody can control it. Not even the Malian government can control it. And this would also send a signal to other armed groups in Niger, in Burkina, and northern part of Togo and Benin, to also have some kind of momentum to try and then, collaborate with other affiliates, armed groups, to try and attack or cause havoc. We are in an uncertain situation, for we especially bordered by, countries that have experienced activities of armed elements. So, Kojo, the situation is very, very dire. The ECOWAS needs to come in, AU needs to come in. We've talked about African Standby Force. We don't know where it is operationally. Countries have their defense ministers. West African countries have their defense ministers go to sit and then plan on how to respond to such situations. Now, let me talk about the AES themselves, because as Mali is part of it. The uncertainty about this new framework and what collaborations or coordinations they have to do with regards to such, armed elements, for which specifically was the reason why they toppled the government, the democratic government. It's uncertain. They themselves are lacking with regards to finances, capacity, and then equipment to fight these armed groups. Remember, they sent out, peacekeepers. We talk about the MINUSMA, United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali. Before then, it was the AFISMA, the African-led International Support Mission in Mali. And then MINUSMA came in after AFISMA. We know how they asked all these missions, or the missions ended. And then some of us were very, very critical about the issue that sending these missions out will mean you don't have any kind of collaboration with regards to intelligence gathering, with regards to how you're going to fight the war against armed elements. And this is where we are. It will get worse.
But Doc, once they moved out of the ECOWAS, can ECOWAS then do something? Because they are part of the AESL, as you mentioned. Can ECOWAS intervene if they are not member states?
Kojo, the discussion or argument has been that if they are no more part of ECOWAS, connected to the other, peripherals like economics, trade, energy, and whatnot, do we then allow them, okay, if they topple or the government topples, goes down in the security front? The security front is more important. It affects all of us than any other thing. Now, there are discussions behind the scenes, although it hasn't come out. Engagements behind the scenes with regards to how they can come back to ECOWAS. You remember, we as a country, Ghana, have an envoy to what? Envoy to the Sahel, that in the person of Lieutenant Colonel retired Bavola. Now, other international organizations, the EU has also followed suit with an envoy to the Sahel.
You see him in the smoke.
We have also taken that steps. EU has followed suit. And all these signals, the discussions in the background with regards to how we can be able to either assist them or collaborate or coordinate in the security front. Because you can't say, Kojo, that if they are out of ECOWAS, we are close.
These people, are they in support?
And then if something happens on the security-wise, you would expect that you need to collaborate with them. And so the fact that they are out of ECOWAS doesn't mean we should leave them for them to go on this fight alone. I can understand where ECOWAS and AU will be coming from. And hence, they may even have issues with us with regards to our envoy to the Sahel and how we are, collaborating with them closely on all of that. But for we know why. It's for the security of our nation, our sovereignty, which will be threatened if these countries go down. We are talking about inflows, proliferation of small arms, light weapons, armed elements coming in and going out as they want. The system will be disrupted. So, in as much as, yes, they've gone out of, a system that we all recognize, how best can we also engage them at the sidelines in the security front so we don't lose out at all if anything should happen, Kojo?
I'm grateful for joining us here. But finally, the defense minister who was killed, I'm told, you would describe that as he as being the next in command. If he has been killed, what does that mean for the government now? Does it look like they will lose this, or there's a way out?
The government is shaky now because you have your defense minister, who is more like the architect of your defense mechanism inland. You're talking about the air, land, and then on the sea. And if this man has been taken out, then it means that you would expect that morale will be down. A general who has been killed, morale will be down. How they pick themselves up is very important. Now, it also means for the armed elements, they have chalked a great success that has never been chalked before. We are talking about how they are toppling the, paramilitary in there, where these international armed groups who have also come, the Wagners and all that, who are being toppled. It means the armed groups are making gains, and whoever is going to replace, General Sadio, has much work to do. But, of course, if they're able to repel the armed groups, they won't be able to gain the areas where the armed groups have now been able to take over. And it's going to be a tough call for the Malian troops.
Okay. All right. I'm grateful to you, Dr. Victor Doke, for joining us here. He is lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Let's come into the studio now and take brief remarks on this Malian situation. Let me start with you, Lom.
To see developments like this in Mali, because obviously we know that the Sahel region is quite integrated. So what is happening in Mali cannot be a Mali issue alone. It's likely to spill over into other Sahelian countries and even other countries in West Africa, including Ghana, obviously, because the sub-region is quite porous, and there have been many instances where activities of armed groups have crossed borders, and we've seen that in the past, and there's absolutely no reason to question or doubt whether that is possible also in this instance. But you see, for me, one of the things that struck a serious chord when I was looking at the stories around this is the fact that they were able to kill a sitting defense minister. That shows you the level of coordination, the kind of intelligence, the preparation that went into it and so on. Because as far as most countries' security architecture is concerned, the defense minister is one of the highly protected individuals, because in terms of hierarchy and the person's role in the governance structure, there's always that level of security, because after the president, vice president, speaker, and chief justice and all those things, the minister of defense is definitely one of the most highly protected. And for that particular person in that role to be attacked and killed, and not only that, we also see that there were coordinated attacks in several cities. So it wasn't just at the capital, but it was spread across key locations, which tells you the level of sophistication that is at play. And Doc mentioned the fact that, it looks like now there seems to be financing for these kinds of activities, which is quite troubling, because it has become a commercial venture beyond just issues pertaining to security. Now, beyond that, we also know that Russia is at play in Mali and the Sahel, because, there's a lot of, they are using a lot of Russian mercenaries and Russian security forces. Part of the reason is because, as you know, most Francophone countries are moving away from the France domination for many years. So one of the alternatives that they are also considering is Russian. And from one of the reports, I've seen that even a Russian operative was also killed. So it tells you that the sophistication of this armed group is not one to be taken lightly, and the implications for the sub-region. ECOWAS has issued statements, the EU has issued the UN, everybody, because, like I said, it's a big issue. We in Ghana, for instance, have a special envoy to the Sahel, which is in the person of Colonel Latte. So obviously, I expect that our envoy, together with key officials of government, are keeping a close eye on it, including the foreign ministry, because, as I said, these things have a way of perhaps spiraling beyond the country in question to other countries that perhaps may have implications for Ghana. We have recently, launched the visa-free policy for West Africa, even though we know Mali and the other Sahel countries have withdrawn from ECOWAS officially, but they are still part of Africa, and they are also obviously welcome to come to Ghana. But that further highlights the need for us to deepen the security checks in terms of people who are going to come in and so on. I recall several years ago when there was a terrorist attack in Côte d'Ivoire. It prompted Ghanaian hotels to start checking when you get to the hotel. Because it happened at a resort on the coast, which was alleged to have been done by militants from the Sahel, just like something like what we are talking about here. And then Ghanaian hotels started putting in place those mechanisms where if you are entering, they have to check your vehicle. So now today you go to some of these hotels and basically they wave you in. They wave you in. It's not as stringent as it was or what triggered that change. But these are the things. Security should not be taken lightly.
Okay.
Visible security as well as, the intelligence side of it, where, we are gathering enough information and intelligence to know at any point in time what the risks are, what the threats are, and what the state security apparatus need to do, because it's clear that Mali did not see this coming.
Okay.
And
All right.
It really puts our security forces in a place where we need to also be very vigilant to ensure that nothing like this happens here or in the sub-region. Yeah.
Titus, yesterday I was having a conversation with someone, and he said, once a coup happens in a country, some other grouping would also want to do it. So then there's that cycle of coups after coups. What must be the solution to this? That because these guys came through a coup, some people would also want to take them out and come into government through a coup.
You mean here in Ghana?
No.
Or in the
Somali, yes. And the countries that have military governments now.
First of all, good morning to your viewers, your good self, Elom and Obna, MFI and the team behind the scene. I think that ontologically there is a problem that we need to identify. You recall that since France was kicked out in these three nations, it looks as if some people, so to speak, are not comfortable of what is happening. Because most of their natural resources have been nationalized, particularly in their mining sector. And you could see that it's becoming more challenging in terms of security. Now, when Dr. Doke was giving his contribution, he touched on two things: funding source and supply. So in the fight against this insecurity, if the funding of these rebels are not checked, are not controlled, are not cut off, there cannot be no peace in these three Sahelian countries. You understand? There can be no peace in these Sahelian countries. So the question is, who is supplying and who is funding this insecurity in these countries? The AU and ECOWAS intelligence community must help us. Okay. Because these hoodlums are not working in a vacuum. There's a backing, money, and supply of weapons. So it is something we need to look at it. So if there's a coup, d'etat, and all this, there are some characters behind the scene who are pushing them. Because for some time now there's some stability in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and in Niger.
And Guinea as well.
And Guinea as well.
Also has,
what's his name? Domboya.
Yeah.
There's been some quite stability in these countries. So why are people still not comfortable to allow this peace to continue? It means there's something somewhere that some people are interested to destabilize the peace of these Sahelian countries and all that. So we need to interrogate this matter very well. Now, the killing of the defense minister, it exposes the weakness in their security architecture. Honestly, if a whole security chief has been killed, either Kabila, there can be some spy within the government of this government, because for all you know, you cannot tell. We've been reading snipers of information on social media as to how the Burkinabe head of state, there were several attempts over his life. And because the people are so loyal to the state and him, at any point in time when monies want to exchange hands, they go and show the money to him. These are the characters who wanted to sponsor me to come and kill you or to overthrow your government. How has it been done in Niger? How has it been done in Mali? So clearly, we have an issue. It tells us that there's a security lapse in the security architecture of Mali, of what has happened.
Intelligence gathering.
Key. Very, very key. So this is something that they need to set up. Yes, long talk about the Wagner Group of Russia. All the 3 states, they now fall on the Wagner Group of Russia. I mean, to make sure they back them in terms of their security. What is happening? Because these Wagner groups, they don't operate for nothing. You have to pay them so that they can strengthen your internal security for you. So it is something that we need to look at it. Yes, ECOWAS, they are no more with ECOWAS because that does not mean that we should throw them away because the movement of people, goods and all that. But trust me, our borders are still porous. In MPP government time, there was a series of active activity across the northern borders. Since our friends came, things have stopped. The kind of commitment that we're doing across the borders have all ceased. So this should serve as an eye-opener to us. They should go back because there was funding from government to support the armed forces in all these areas around the Gonja area, the Upper West, the Upper East, to make sure that at least we'll put these people on check. If we don't take care and some of these things, they slip in, it's going to be very disastrous for us. So I think that we still count on our national security, the Ghana Armed Force, to up their game and to make sure that they go back and to strengthen our borders for us, to make sure that we don't have some of these people crossing. Because if they dare, for us, we'll crush them. If they dare enter, Ghana will crush them. We're not going to compromise. Yes, of course.
We should what you're saying.
I'm saying that we need to prepare ourselves. Because when you leave yourself open, and they'll slip in.
Okay.
And they do all kinds of things. So intelligence gatherings is so key in some of these things that we do. Okay. And they must watch internally. For all you know, there can be informants within the security architecture of Mali and all those people who relay information, do here, do that. And if they're able to handle this thing, I'm not sure they will succeed in some of these things.
Okay. Let me bring in Kwabena here, Dr. Bonfe. Now, Ghana has operated our fourth republic for how many years? I think over 92.
34?
About 30.
Over 30, yeah?
34.
34.
92.
Can we make this our example at the disposal of these countries? Because I come back to the same conversation I had that once there's a coup, someone would also want to attempt it. How can these countries avoid these coups so that they could have that continuous, peace that will help them in their development trajectory?
First of all, I think that it is important for us to accept that there is no substitute better than the people always expressing their choice as to how to be governed and who to govern them. There's no substitute to that. Whatever form it takes, whether it is through representation or some proportional representation or popular election, whatever it is, the people being governed or the people who are governed must always have a say in how they are governed and who governs. Now, anything that usurps the power of the people to exercise that right of choice, for me, is unacceptable. That's why I condemned the military takeover in Burkina Faso, and I still condemn it. Traoré has no business continuing to hold office, having taken power by the barrel of the gun. So his colleagues in Niger and Mali. Now, what has happened in Mali should be an eye-opener, that those other countries, they cannot, through the use of force, suppress dissent or disagreement. The worst form of a democratic government will always be better than the best form of a military dictatorship. Simplicity. Any Democrat, anybody who believes in democracy, and this is the point. That's why we have got terms, limits in terms of the exercise of power, limits in terms of the tenure or the reign. You have 4 years, you have 5 years, and that's why it becomes dangerous when civilian or constitutionally elected governments try to use constitutional means to entrench themselves in power. And we condemn that. Now, when you take the operation of democracy out, when you take that out, even the right to speak and express dissent is taken away with it. So that is the first point. Now, the second point I want to make is this, and I think my colleagues who have spoken ahead of me have all hinted at the influence of external factors, particularly the Russians. When you talk about Wagner Group, where are they from? They are Russians. Our understanding, and this morning BBC was putting it out, the Russians were believed to have helped all the coup makers in these three countries who have created what they call Sahel, whatever. As for the propriety of Ghana sending a representative to Sahel, the president is the one who decides. But with all the history that Ghana has in OAU, which is now AU, ECOWAS, and the troops who are called ECOMOC, it would not be right that Ghana would be endorsing by sending a representative to a country which was led by military junta. It couldn't be right. It's inconsistent. Then I think the third leg that comes into this, beyond the external influence, is the leadership of West Africa. Which West African leader has boldly had the courage to invite or visit these people, sit down with them and say, look, we cannot have this in our sub-region. Return power to civilian government. Hold an election. What is the basis? Why did they embark on the coups? And now, in thinking that you are safe, the military, your head of intelligence, has been hit. Of course, I agree with Nii Kwate that there could be an element from inside, because it won't just happen. But bottom line, be careful with the Greeks when they come with gifts. Those who help them, could it be that they are getting tired of them, or there's a disagreement, as I'm picking from some quarters, that the Russians strategically undertook certain steps, and you know their presence is still in those Sahel nations, to allow for this to happen.
But the Wagner Group is like a business entity, right? They work for money.
They are mercenaries.
Of course.
Once you contract them, they will be there to help you out. It's a business wing.
But it's a military enterprise.
Yes, yes.
With a state interest.
Well,
And that's what I'm talking about.
okay.
We're in the geopolitics of East versus West, and if you like, America versus Russia, China, and all these, the allies on one side. Okay? How is that playing out? And that is where it comes to my final point. For how long shall Africans continue to surrender our greatest asset, not the minerals, not the diamonds, not the gold, not the timber, our greatest wealth, our intellectual thoughts, to the manipulation of outside forces? For how long? Must somebody be telling us what development is? Who is developing us? Who is not developing us? Who is accountable to us? Who is not accountable to us? How do you replace French or France with Russia and you think you are okay? Or replace Britain with America? Or America and Britain with China? How long?
But they haven't said they have replaced them with those countries, that country.
Look,
They said they've severed ties with France, that's all.
And who is offering them what you call business protection? Who is doing that? They've severed relations with France.
Yes.
And who is giving them what you call a business arrangement of protection? Who is it? Is it Burkina Faso?
They're paying for services.
No, but is it Burkina Faso? Is it Mali? Is it Niger? Or it is Russia? You cannot sever relations with France and say that you are getting protection from Russia. With what interest?
Okay.
So my point is that it's a high time. Look, this was said as if prophecy on the 25th of May, 1963. When Osajifo said that we either unite now or perish. That we need a new type of citizen in Africa.
All right. Okay.
That is where I am driving to. Our intellectual capacities, our intellectual independence, and the commitment that indeed we can show that the African is somebody, but that somebodyness begins with our thinking.
Okay.
Are we thinking as Africa?
Okay. Thank you very much, James Bonfe. Doc. Lawyer. Good morning to you.
Morning, Bruce. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, when they did theirs, I think Mali started the whole thing, right? Was it Mali or was Guinea? When it started, then the other countries also followed on until they got to Burkina. With this starting, you can anticipate what would then follow in the other countries. How do we really prevent that? ECOWAS has spoken, but is speaking enough? And is there anything they can do beyond just speaking?
Well, I mean, they are no longer part of ECOWAS. Not that that matters anyway, because at the end of the day, it's the same geographic, enclave, sub-region. For me, this is actually not just another security incident. I think it should be treated as a major geopolitical shock for all of us in West Africa. And ECOWAS, Sahel, whatever these regional bodies are, I think we need to look upon the issue with we need to see it through a regional lens. Because instability in Mali affects Niger, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and then the wider ECOWAS region because of the terrorist risk to all of us, the arms flows, migration pressure is another thing, and then the disrupted trade corridors. So I feel that there should be a stronger cooperation against terrorism between ECOWAS and the Sahel states, because terrorism does not respect anybody's borders. It comes in, creeps in, spreads out. If there's fire there, we all see the smoke. So what we are trying to avoid is to contain that fire and prevent the smoke from spilling over to the rest of us. For us in Ghana, I believe that it's another reminder to all of us that border security, intelligence, cooperation, and youth unemployment, that's another thing that makes these things easier. Can quickly become, all these things, when you put them together, they can quickly, very, very quickly become national security issues. So I don't think that we should assume that distance equates to safety. I mean, all these military rulers promise their citizenry security and all sorts of things. And so I don't know whether this is a first crack that will soon spread, or this thing can be contained. It's important that it's contained. And one needs to look behind all these happenings. A lot of the time when these things are, somebody is organizing these things. Somebody is funding these things. It's in someone's interest to keep this going. So that is really what we need to look at. What is actually happening behind it? What is fueling this whole thing? I think, my colleagues have also said everything. And Africa does need to unite, just to go back to Kwabna's point, because at the end of the day, we should be masters of our own destiny. We are often like pawns in a chess game, you know, and we're just being moved around the board, just moved from here to there, here to there, here to there, and we are pretending to be governing ourselves sometimes. I think that the time has come, really. I mean, the AU has been around for forever. And we are still being funded by Europe, primarily. You know, so if your organization, you know, the AU, that is meant to pull in all these 54 states, all of us together, is being funded by another entity, then are we really serious? Are we saying that out of these 54 countries, I don't know how much it costs to run the AU, but can't each country contribute 5 million or whatever it is? So that even if you need external funding, it doesn't become the primary source of your existence, you know, as a continent. It's a very serious situation. This is continental control. It's a soft power on the continent. So we need to advise ourselves, and I think I'll park my conversation there.
Okay.
Do I have a few points too?
Now, if you look at it, just when the lawyer was speaking, I was checking how the coups have been in the Sahel region. Indeed, Mali had two between 2020 and 2021.
Yes.
So one, Assimi Goïta, I think the one who's currently there, did one in 2020. And then he allowed a transitional government led by, I think, a defense minister, former Colonel Bandao. Then he came again in 2021, that's Goïta, to overthrow Ndao.
Yes.
Yes.
Then Burkina Faso had theirs in 2022 when Colonel Paul Henry Sandogo Damiba detained President-elect I remember President Akufo-Addo even asking for the President-elect to be released. Then when he did that, Captain Ibrahim Traoré also overthrew him to come up. Then from there, it led on. So if the Mali one stands, then
they just,
Exactly. And so just to add to that, or the conversation. So, first of all, you know, these schools, just as you have said, and I have this general belief that when you come in by the sword, you are likely to go by the sword. Because you see, people will begin to feel like, why are you ruling when perhaps by now they're expecting that you'd have handed over some transition? So you see that internally, even within the military, there's always some challenge. As you've said, you can see the issues there. Beyond that also, to add to one of the points that Vicky made, you see, and I think Kwabna as well, the point about Africans working together and why we have essentially mortgaged everything about our destiny to the West is so serious that the AU head office was itself built by China and given to us as a gift. In fact, basically, they built the head office and then just said, here are the keys, go inside. And you see, look at the symbolism of that for the entire continent. It is wrong.
Terrible.
And that's it, as Vicky said, in terms of funding and so on. But I wanted to make a few points about something also. Besides the Sahel, I also saw a story last week about an attempted coup in Nigeria. There was an attempted coup in Nigeria, yes. In Nigeria also, they've arrested some people, attempted coup, but of course it didn't happen. So they are just going to prosecute them, and they've also raised issues about, they say they are innocent behind and so on. But Dr. Dorkin made a point about small arms.
Let's wrap up and go on.
Yes. Small arms proliferation in West Africa. And that's one of the things in Ghana as well. You know, recently, Small Arms Commission did amnesty for people and so on. But I can assure you that the level of penetration of small arms in Ghana, that's what is fueling conflicts in Boko and all other places in Ghana. So we have to strengthen our country regulatory environment and so on, including Small Arms Commission, because right now they are essentially an advisory body, and they should have more enforcement powers to be able to deal with it.
Don't go. This matter is key. We are dealing with security here.
We need to talk about
Cool down, we'll go there. Throughout our discussion here, Kabila touched on constitutional democracy, where the will of the people have been suppressed because you don't give them the opportunity to be partners in the governance structure of a country. Because you all know that when the military are detecting, there is, you know what I mean? So you don't have the opportunity, at least, to contribute in the governance of your country. So it's key that these military juntas should give room for a return of democracy in their respective countries, where people can be partners in that. Number two, AU and other people must find out. Those who are funding these things, we know them. They know. You think Niger and Co, they don't know. Burkina Faso, they don't know those who are behind them. They must expose these people for the world to know that these are the people who are making our governance uncomfortable for us. It's very important. Then give it talked about unemployment. Trust me, if there are no jobs, the youth will find other things to do. With the slightest motivation, they are prepared to do anything. So if you don't give jobs to these youth across everywhere, it gives an opportunity for these young ones to join anything that they want to do. I had, during the Russia-Ukraine war, there are some Ghanaian youth who want to join the Russian army. Why?
Some have even died.
Some even died. Because of frustration and unemployment and all that. The AU must be up and doing. I see them more of a talk shop. I see them more of a talk shop where they go and flex muscles because I'm this, I'm that.
Okay.
They must be seen to be doing what our forebears united for us to do.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Just 2 points, very critical for Ghana. One, those who have the penchant to glorify coups. Oh, see what Traore is doing in Burkina. Please, don't encourage it. It's never a good thing. Second, the connection to wealth, mineral wealth, illegal mining, and the creation of warlords. You talked about the proliferation of small arms. Where are they? Who are the ones looking for these things? Recently, not long ago, you heard about a standoff between, is it the NIMOS group and some miners?
Yeah.
I did an article in 2005 predicting that if we didn't stop mining recklessly, even by legal licensed miners, we're pushing the nation to a brink where what happened in Sierra Leone, Liberia, for the Sanko and Co. You know, they came up, through illegal mining and those things. Let's be very careful. And in Mali, this is also playing a part in what is going on.
Okay.
As a people, we need to understand, nobody will build Ghana for us. No Russian, no Chinese, no French, no British. We Ghanaians must elect that we want to self-govern and govern properly.
All right, thank you very much.